and then we'll have time for questions and answers at the end of our session today. So you'll notice that there's a Q&A box, and my colleagues at Vancouver are making sure to answer your questions. So as they come in, please just add them there. And then there will be time that we'll have to answer questions when we're done today. So a little bit of background about what is iReady. So iReady is a diagnostic assessment that assesses all grade levels of all the standards for both reading and for math. So students take it each year, fall, winter, and spring. And the purpose of it is just to show growth so that we really understand what do your students know coming into each school year. That middle point is that checkpoint of what have they learned so far. And then the end of the year is like, let's see all of their growth for the year. And teachers then use that data to set goals with your students. So they set goals so that we can either put your students on a path to proficiency or advanced proficiency so that they're continuing to learn and to grow with both reading and mathematics standards. And then a new bonus this year is our K-5 students are going to have access to personalized online lessons based on their individual skill levels in both reading and mathematics. You'll be seeing students do these lessons weekly at home to help fill in those gaps that they might have, knowing that students might have unfinished learning from the spring, or they just may struggle in certain areas. And iReady is one tool that your teachers will use to help fill in that gap so that we can get them closer to grade level or above grade level. And lastly, within iReady, there are resources that support our teachers with whole class as well as small group instruction. And so I work really closely with the teachers to help them figure out, hey, what does this really mean and how can I make a better impact on our students? So the diagnostic, the purpose of it is to determine how to best support your students' learning, and it's not to give your student a score or a grade. So it's adaptive. So what that means is students are going to get questions all over the board, and they're going to get questions that are too hard and too easy. As students get questions correct, the test gets a little bit more challenging. If they get an answer incorrect, it adapts down to figure out what exactly is their performance level in both reading and in mathematics. So that means that questions are going to be, some are going to be too hard, some are going to be too easy, and then others will be just right for students. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take a second to watch a quick video on introducing the iReady diagnostic assessment at home so that we can learn a little bit about what your role is as a proctor this year so that we know how we can best support our students.
Hello, I'm Ty with a message from the iReady team. But first, a question. Have you ever taken a vision test? Some letters are blurry, some are crystal clear, and when the test is over, the eye doctor knows exactly what you can see and how to help you see even better. iReady is like that, but it's not checking vision. It's telling us what your child already knows and what they need to work on next in math and reading. It's a very different kind of test than you and I grew up with. With iReady, no grades are given. It's fully expected that students will get 50% of the questions wrong, which is good because that's how teachers know what to work on with your child. iReady is normally given at school, but this year, there's no normal. Teachers are counting on us, the families, to get the same trusted results so your child's learning will stay on course, whether they're in school or at home or both. And the best way for you to help is not to help. Would you help your child with a vision test? Of course not. You'd stand back and provide no hints. It's about what your child knows, not what you know. And the great thing about this is that the test reveals that students may know more than we think. Now, there are a few things you can do. The most important being this: make sure your child takes iReady in a quiet space. The fewer distractions, the better. Other tips on how to help can be found at the link on your screen. Teachers need our help. In order for them to best support our kids, it'll take our best to get the very best of iReady.
All
So,
right.
go ahead,
Thanks,
Darcy.
Megan. I'm just going to speak to, there's a couple people asking about kindergarten, and I didn't mention that to start off. Kindergarten is optional. So there will be some buildings that may want to administer with kindergarten. Most of our buildings will not. And the great news is that kindergartners do not have to take the diagnostic in order to be on the MyPath. And so, and Megan will talk a little bit more about that, but the test is optional for kindergarten, but the lessons they will be part of.
Great, thank you, Darcy. And I appreciate those that were letting me know that my microphone was not loud enough. So doing a microphone check real quick, Darcy. Is that better? Okay, thank you. The joys of technology and Zoom and back to school. So I appreciate you, those of you that let me know. So to reiterate what Darcy was saying, so the diagnostic is adaptive and our kinder students are not going to take the diagnostic this fall because we know that this is their first time joining public education, and starting them off with a diagnostic assessment might not be the best tool for those students. We know that they have things that they need to learn, and most of them are going to be on that same path. And so when I get to personalized instruction, I'll explain what kindergarten students have access to without having to take the diagnostic assessment. And this is a K-12 diagnostic assessment. That means that students will have access to questions at all of those grade levels, but it is just an assessment that our K-8 students are taking at this time. And I'll let Darcy add on to that as we continue to talk through our session today. So before the diagnostic assessment, one thing that we want to know, we want to make sure that you know, is how do your students log into iReady? So students will have iReady in their ClassLink library. As soon as they jump into ClassLink, they're going to click on their iReady iPad, the iReady app within their iPad. So I'll let either Gail or Bridget speak to exactly how students are going to be supported with logging into iReady.
Yes, so again, we wanted to include a resource for you to know exactly how students log in. And it's similar to what students do now to access their most all of their apps from Vancouver Public Schools, the ClassLink app. So just like they go into ClassLink to find their Canvas page or other apps, iReady is there as well. So they would just log into their ClassLink on the iPad and click iReady, and no sign in necessary. It'll pop them right into iReady. We do have a couple tech tips for you, some suggestions that, if they're having any trouble at all, we have a couple tips at the top where they just need to either reinstall their app and hold it down with their finger, delete the app and reinstall it again, and check to see if the iReady app is on their iPads. It should have been pushed out by ITS or ITS department, but just something to check before the students get ready next week to see if the iReady app is on their iPad. There is also a family support help desk, and you can contact your school's teacher or school building to find out the telephone number for that, or some schools actually do have some family tech support days. So just contact your child's teacher and school to find out further tech support that could, if it's needed, so we can help you. Bridget, did you have anything to add?
No, I felt that you covered it beautifully. The last note, there's going to be tech support at the buildings on a rotational schedule. So keep an eye out for that. I'll try to get, I know the schedule is getting published so that families can actually go right up to the school, bring their devices and get protected, mask wearing, plexiglass support with your device. So we've made it as simple as possible to log right into iReady. I think this slide that you created, Gail, is perfect for showing that.
Great. Great. So keep the questions coming into the Q&A. Gail, Willie, Bridget, and Darcy will continue to answer those. And as questions come in that many parents have, we'll make sure that we address those as the whole group. So a few things to think about before the assessment is we need to make sure we're finding that right time that students are going to be working on the diagnostic. So we want them to break it into smaller 15 to 20-minute chunks, but ideally it takes on average 45 to 60 total minutes to complete the diagnostic, but we don't want them doing all that in one sitting. We also want our students to have the right place to when they're taking the diagnostic. So just like when they take it with their teachers, the classroom is quiet. It is the intentional focus of that time. So we want to make sure that students, they have their headphones when they're taking the diagnostic and they're at a kitchen table or at their desk so that they're working on it in a situation that is kind of mimicking what they would do in the classroom. And then lastly, even though this is an online test, kiddos are still going to need scratch paper, especially for mathematics. So a couple of the W's. So students are going to ask the question, so why am I taking this test? So they take it every year, but we're taking this just so the teachers know what you can already do and what you need to learn next, or what you're ready to learn next. And then teachers are going to cover both of those in their teaching. So they're going to teach their standards at their grade level, but they're also going to help fill in the gaps. And iReady, the personalized instruction, is one tool that's going to help fill in on the skills that students need. Another W is, why is it important to do my best? So we want to make sure that students do their best and treat it just like an eye exam. So for example, we don't want to give them any of the answers, because then the lessons are going to say, oh, you already know that skill, when they actually still might need that practice. So we want to make sure that the lessons that you get make sense and that keep those students, your students, learning and growing. We want to make sure that the lessons that students get aren't too hard, but also aren't too boring or easy. And the last W is, what is the test like? So many of the students have taken the diagnostic before, but it adapts and it changes as you take. There are going to be some questions that are too hard, some are that too easy, and you're making sure reminding kiddos, you're going to get about half of them right and half of them wrong, and that's okay. And then when finished, your teacher will know exactly how to help you grow. And then lastly, what if I don't know the answer? That is okay. So half of them right, half of them wrong. If you don't know, just try your best. And it's okay if you don't know the answer. That just signals to the teacher that's something that they're ready to learn next. So by encouraging them just to make the best guess and keep going. So before we talk about during the assessment, are there any questions in the Q&A that I can address?
Megan, there's a question about the schedule. And so I just wanted to note that generally what we're doing is the buildings will be administering the math test next week, but it will be a little bit different for each classroom, as the teachers are going to be starting and kind of doing some proctoring and an initial session with the kids, and then they'll instruct them to take the test. And so the hope is that, you know, students will be able to take the test during the day when the teacher is directing that. But if that is not an option, then the testing window will be open, and Bridget, correct me if I'm wrong, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. each day, in case people need, you know, to vary that time at all, because we want to be flexible for families. So there will be some additional time for that.
I can move it. I have it at 7 a.m.
Oh, 7, okay.
I can make it earlier if folks want to get up earlier.
Yeah, I can't imagine that they would, but 7 a.m. is great. So thank you.
Yeah.
And then the math will be scheduled the week after that. So that's, you know, the hope that, you know, we really kind of get in that testing mode and we have everybody working on math next week and then reading the following week.
So great point. And then a few other questions that have come in about explaining to our children the purpose. It's okay to explain to them, some questions are going to be too hard, some are going to be too easy. And if you don't know it, make your best guess. And that's perfectly fine, because that's how the adaptiveness of the diagnostic works. Just know that the diagnostic is multiple choice. So K1, 2 students, they have 3 options to pick from when they're answering. And then some questions have 4 options. And so it's very simple for them to talk through it. We'll have an idea of what it looks like in just a second, and then we'll continue to answer those questions. So during the diagnostic, so once students log in, they first click reading or math, which I'll show you in a second. But you either, the first thing you have is just a quick survey. Where are you taking the diagnostic? Are you taking it at school? Or are you taking it at home? And then they click the green arrow to move on. And then they choose their subject. So for reading, students click on the book. That's the second week, the week of the 21st. And then for math, the week of the 14th, they click on the math science. And then it logs them right in. And the first thing that they have to do is just click on that diagnostic button that says reading diagnostic or math diagnostic. So they click on that button to start their diagnostic. Right after they do that, they then first watch a video that explains what the diagnostic is. So our K2 students have a video with Plori and Yoop, 2 of our iReady characters. And our upper grade levels have a video with a student that it really explains that purpose. Just reiterating what I'm explaining to you and that you might have conversations with them. They also hear that same thing, kind of like that eye exam when they're in the diagnostic taking it. And then after they watch that video, they click on buttons to learn about each of the tools within the diagnostic. So they've got a My Progress button, they might have math tools, and they watch a quick little tutorial about how to take it. And then they click all of the items before that they can press start. So that's at the beginning of the diagnostic. During the diagnostic, there are breaks built into the entire assessment. So they're not going to finish it all at once without taking a brain break. So we have brain breaks automatically built in at specific checkpoints during the diagnostic that just encourages students just to take that mental brain break, whether it be breathing exercises or let's just stand up and stretch for a second. And then teachers are also going to be partnering with you to come up with a schedule to make sure that we're administering the diagnostic in bite-sized chunks. So I have a 5-year-old at home, and if he were taking the diagnostic as a kinder, I don't expect him to be able to work for longer than 10 minutes at a time. And so with first grade students, it might be 15 minutes. Just try your best for 15 minutes, and then we'll keep going tomorrow. Are there any other questions that have come in that I can talk about when it comes to just that initial getting into iReady and the diagnostic?
Megan, there was one question around can my student opt out? The hope would be that the students would not opt out because this is not a test designed as any kind of high stakes test. This is a test designed to provide information about each individual student's learning so that we can use it to inform instruction, and that the diagnostic is how the MyPath lessons are developed so that it reaches each individual student and provides any kind of support that that student needs. So it's really important that each student takes the test because this is a resource that's really going to benefit their learning and in an individualized way.
Great point. And just a few other questions that I see that have come in the questions box. So each teacher is going to be coming up with a plan for what that's going to look like. Another thing to know is within the diagnostic, audio support is built in for all K-5 students. So questions are automatically read to students if they're testing in kinder, first, or second grade level. If students test into 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade, there is a speaker button on every single item that a student can click on to have the question read to them. And that's one of the tools that they go through when they're logging in to take the diagnostic for the first time. So keep the questions coming in, and our team will continue to answer them.
Megan, can you address
finish,
the just right place that, because we had a question with regard to, can I support my students, read the questions to them, help them with the answers? And can you address what it means to get a student into the just right fit into the lesson pathway?
Yeah, so we want to make sure that any question that the students answers is what they know or what they're ready to learn next. And so if a student doesn't quite understand a question and they've listened to it themselves, just have them make their best guess, because it might be a skill that they haven't learned yet. We want to try and refrain from helping and coaching, but just being that support, like, hey, keep going, buddy, you're doing great. We're going to work for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever that teacher has set up, so that we really treat it like an eye exam, so that if they don't know that it's a capital E and they think it's a capital F, that's okay, because that means that they need a specific prescription for their eyeglasses. Okay, thanks for helping me jump in. And there are only 2 tests, one for reading, one for math, but it's just done 3 times a year. So that's the question that just came in that I just happened to glance at. So thinking about what students see when they're done. So they don't see anything but like a, hey, you're finished, I'm so proud of you. For grades 3 through 8, you're complete. So they just get the button that they're done with the diagnostic. So as your role when you're helping facilitate the diagnostic, we want to just make sure they're using paper to try the math, especially those upper grade levels that we know, did you really do that all in your head, or did you at least try to write it down real quick? If your student seems tired or is getting frustrated, like we all know that Zoom fatigue is real, and sometimes they just get tired after 15 minutes, let them take a break. So they can just log out of iReady, and then when they log back in, it's okay. They don't have to re-sign in or do anything fancy. It just automatically picks up where they left off. And then most importantly, just as I mentioned earlier, try not to help your students answer any questions, because it's just, if you were to answer a handful of questions, then they won't get lessons on those, even if they might need that skill. So we want the best data possible so that your child's teacher knows exactly what instruction to provide that's just right for them. Any questions that have come in that I can answer to the group?
Megan, there's one. How is a teacher going to formulate a learning plan for each student based on iReady testing if we're in a remote environment for the unforeseen future? So classes from 8:30 to roughly 3. So how might this work?
So I'm just scrolling up to find that question. I didn't see where it went, but I will. So when we're thinking about this virtual back to school, ideally, if we were in person, students would be attending with their teacher from 8:30 to 3 every day. But it's really tricky to navigate that virtually over Zoom. There are going to be some activities that teachers do live, and then they say, okay, go ahead and do this on your own. They might be practicing some math on a whiteboard, or they might be reading silently on their own. So when it comes to administering the diagnostic and then using that data, so teachers are still going to be teaching synchronously there. That's just at the beginning of their learning with how are we navigating this remote instruction. We're just in the beginning weeks of that. And then we're going to continue to move forward with our standards. It just looks quite a bit different from when we're in person, because we're trying to navigate everything through a tiny little camera and a tiny little microphone with multiple students. But I'm going to continue to support teachers as well as Darcy, Gail, Willie, and Bridget on, now we have this data and your student may have a gap in one domain in mathematics. How can this one teacher support that one student? And it could be by using iReady and those MyPath lessons, or it could be by meeting with that one student and a handful of others once a week in a small group to help fill in those gaps. Did that kind of answer the question, Darcy?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that just reiterating that the lessons are really meant to be asynchronous, so that the students, you know, like you said, in addition to their instruction time, they'll go and they'll do their lessons at their own pace based on their own pathway. And the teacher is able to see how they do on those lessons, and they will intervene if the student is not passing the lesson. So they'll be able to work with that student and see how that student's doing.
Mm-hmm. great point. Okay. So I see a lot of questions coming. I'm going to let you continue to answer them, but just call out if there's something I can answer to the whole group.
This is a great one, Megan.
Yep.
If there is a plan to have students back in the classroom this year, wouldn't it make more sense to postpone testing and ensure fidelity in the testing? It appears that the test being taken at home without a proctor would result in skewed testing results. And you can speak to this because Curriculum Associates did have over 800 schools do the testing last spring, and they studied that event.
Mm-hmm. So ideally, so right now we know that there's a plan to go back into the classroom, but we know that, as you can see with 2020, things are changing every week, even day by day. And so the purpose of the diagnostic, even if we have them assessed at home, is for multiple reasons. It's not just to take a test because that's what we do to measure growth. It's really, our teachers don't know their students this year yet. They haven't had a chance to see their work on a piece of paper and realize, oh, you're really struggling with your multiplication facts of threes. So iReady is just one tool to learn about what your students know and what they need to learn outside of the standards that the teachers are going to teach. And so if we were to wait until maybe we go back to school in November, that's 8 weeks there that teachers are going to be teaching and really not having an idea of how bad are their eyes, or they could be teaching them the wrong things when it comes to differentiation. And iReady is just a tool to help give more insight into what students know. And so the support that we're providing is we're just hoping that many students are going to take the diagnostic with their teachers somehow. It's going to be, we're going to start all together as a class, and then I'm going to go have you work for 20 minutes and come back and tell me about one of the questions that you got. Or it might be that you as a parent, you are there when they're taking the diagnostic, and you are that person that's going to be helping just be that cheerleader and that support. And so you as a parent, you are just there, hey, keep going, you're doing a great job, buddy. How about you work on 5 more questions and then we'll take a break. So you could be sitting there next to them, or you can be in a completely different room depending on how your child works, because you know them better than anybody else. Okay.
And I'll add to that you're correct. It's not about getting accurate test results right now in terms of looking at our district at all. This is about propelling our students, helping them move forward. And something that teachers do with this information is they have data chats with the students. These reports are built so that they're understandable to the student, and they can track their data and they can set goals. So we all need to be setting goals at the beginning of the year and knowing, regardless of when we do end up back in the classroom, what type of growth, what sort of goals do we want to accomplish by the time winter rolls around, November, December, when we will come back and take this again.
Yeah, great point. Okay, so I am going to just keep going so that we can talk about what happens after and really understand how the lessons work. And then we'll talk about those data chats. So we want to make sure that you as parents know what the students know and what they're ready to learn next, so that you can also support them. So your teacher will be able to provide any of the iReady data from that student's diagnostic, so that you know, man, my student's at grade level in mathematics, but they have a small gap in geometry. And the teacher can then share, hey, here are that student's next steps in geometry, and their lessons are going to help fill in that gap, but maybe that's something that you work on with them too, or that you have conversations around. So the personalized instruction in iReady provides lessons, not just videos, but lessons based on a student's individual skill and needs. So the lessons are fun and interactive, and they keep them and students engaged as they learn. So a few differences. So we've got, these are just some examples of different lessons. So we've got a kindergarten example, 3rd grade and 7th grade. So there's different ways that they are, that they function. They are interactive. They give students that ownership of, man, I'm really struggling with this. You could even have 2 students take the same lesson and get different activities, because maybe one student already knows that skill and they go through the activities pretty quickly, where the other one needs some more direct or explicit instruction in that actual concept. At the end of each lesson, the teacher will get data on how did that student do in that lesson? How much time did they spend on it? Did they struggle in that lesson at all? Or do they need that skill or concept repeated because they're not quite there yet? And so the same thing for mathematics. So here's a K, a 3, and a grade 7 example of math lessons, so that you can have an idea of just how they're interactive and the differences between kinder and 7th grade, for example. So kinder have more play in them. They are interactive and fun. And 7th grade more jumps right into that, more of that direct into that mathematics instruction. Are there any questions in the questions box that I can answer about either the reading or the math lessons?
I think that will there be audio interpretation for students unable to read the questions and answer choices?
So there's audio supports built in for all K-5 students, whether the questions are read to them or if they click the speaker icon.
And I think unless anybody else sees anything, I think we're on track.
Yep, great. Are the reading lessons always shown, or are they shown first? They're all for all students, the reading lessons and the math lessons. Okay. So thinking about one report that teachers will see for your student is teachers are going to get your students' diagnostic results. And the ways teachers use this is they have an idea of, man, this student is a 5th grader and they're performing right below grade level, which is what we would expect at the beginning of the school year. And I can see here, oh, they have a gap in phonics and an informational text. And then that teacher can dig in even more and learn about what can that student already do in that specific area, and what are those next steps for that student. Because then they can either use resources that they have at their fingertips within iReady to support filling in that gap, or even using their grade level resources that they have already embedded into their core curriculum. And so we're going to be encouraging teachers to share information with you so that you know students aren't just a number. So a student isn't just a number 427. There's really more to that story. So I don't just have bad eyes. There is a specific prescription for both reading and mathematics of here's what my kids know and here's what they're ready to learn next. Any questions about that I can add to? Okay. So when it comes to when they log in for their lesson, students can log in and they can see their My Path lessons. It automatically pops up right when they finish the diagnostic. That's that right-hand side of their screen. But teachers also have the ability to use iReady to support their core instruction. So for example, let's just say I taught a lesson on the area of parallelograms and my students are still really struggling with that. I, as a teacher, can assign that same lesson to my students to help support what they're learning on grade level. And so teachers have lots of different functionality with how iReady works and the tools that they have at their fingertips. And then students also have one little bonus for mathematics called learning games. And these are games that they can play just to help with that repetition and that fluency with mathematics. And so just know that this will also be in their iReady portal when they log in after they finish the diagnostic. So before we talk about next steps for parents, is there anything else I can address before we keep going about the lessons?
Okay, there's a couple here. Will the teacher advise parents when to take the test? Yes. So this will generally, the teacher will direct, and if, again, if students for whatever reason are not able to take it when the teacher is doing it with the entire class, there will be the opportunity to be able to take it outside of school hours if necessary. But the hope is that the majority of the students will be taking it as their teacher is directing them through that. Will my first grader have iReady assignments in addition to assignments from his teacher in Seesaw? More than likely. So what will happen is for a lot of the instruction, the assignments coming from the teacher will be directly related to that synchronous instruction and an extension of that. The iReady lessons will be assigned, again, based on that MyPath, in order to fill in gaps according to the standards that they need to address in their learning. So those would be some asynchronous opportunities for the students to go in addition to what they're doing in person or with Zoom, in Zoom with their teachers.
Great, awesome. Any other questions for the
Could you
group?
also address how to encourage students and to not have stress anxiety? So some strategies for testing.
Yeah, so I know that I think treating it not like a test, treat it like an eye exam. Like, we shouldn't be nervous before we go to the eye doctor, because either way, I'm going to walk away with a better set of glasses. And so if we treat it just like that, I shouldn't get nervous before I go. I get nervous before the dentist maybe, but maybe not before the eye doctor. I'm gonna walk away, and the teacher's gonna walk away with that exact prescription, so that they know, man, this is a -2, this is a -4, or reading, we're doing okay, but math, we need a little bit of extra support. And so just treating it, hey, just show me what you know, and if you don't know it, that's totally okay. And you as a parent helping be that cheerleader alongside the teacher. And so if we, kind of take out the word test, just take out, it's like, that's the screener. Just show me if you know it, and if you don't, cool. Okay.
Also, we had a question to Megan that might be a good time to address it now is, when will the MyPath instructional lessons be available for the students after the diagnostic?
So as soon as students click done, their first lesson will pop right up. So if they're eager to jump right in, students can work on that very first lesson right after they finish the diagnostic. There's nothing that the teacher has to do. It's automatically assigned through iReady. So really great question. Okay. Really great questions coming in. So if there's anything I can continue to address whole group, let me know.
Sure, there's one here. You can describe how it works. Are questions read out loud to the younger grades?
Yep. So K2, if a first grade student were to log in right now, and they would go through the video and go through the tools, the first question that would pop up, they would automatically hear it without having to click anything. They're automatically read to the students if they're testing in kinder, first, or second grade. If they happen to test up into third grade, there will be a speaker icon that students can click on. But most kiddos stay right within their grade level, and the test is just adapting within their grade level to pinpoint what exactly they know and what exactly they're ready to learn next. So great question.
And here's a very important question that we've been working on ourselves. Will teachers be required to monitor the testing via Zoom during the test to ensure that the student is actually the one taking the test?
Darcy, do you want to?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So, and that's where we're going to need some parent support. So when it's possible and the parent is available, we don't want them helping with the test, but making sure that they're there and that the student is working on the test, and also the teacher can track. So there's a way that the teacher through the iReady platform is able to track as students are testing. So it's not foolproof, but the teacher does have the ability to kind of see how long the student's taking and how much time they're spending on the test. But we are working on how to provide an opportunity for the teacher to be able to kind of monitor that. we don't know what those possibilities are actually at the moment. So again, the hope is that the parents will be able to help with that.
Mm-hmm.
Megan, if you could address a couple questions that just came through the chat. One is if their child tests out of grade level, what happens then? And how quickly do teachers get the assessment results?
So the super cool thing about iReady is we always talk about students that are below grade level as iReady is a differentiation tool to help fill in gaps, but it's also that enrichment tool for if your student is testing above grade level. So if I have a second grade student and he tests in the third grade level in math, his iReady lessons are going to be at his level to enrich right where he needs it, to not necessarily jump up 5 grade levels, but to really help fill in that gap so that he can continue, or he or she can continue to be to work above proficiency. So it's that enrichment tool too. And then teachers are going to be monitoring in iReady using their diagnostic status report to see how students are completing the diagnostic, so they can see how much progress they have made. And then when they are done, the data is instant. So they can click on that student and say, oh, that student went a little bit too quickly. I'm going to give them a call and see what happened. Or that student's data is really high compared to what they did last year. Maybe someone else helped them on the diagnostic and maybe we need to retest them or adjust their lessons. So there's lots of different ways that teachers can use iReady right after the diagnostic. Okay. Any other questions that I can answer before we just talk about the family role and the family flyer?
Have the grade level standards been adjusted due to the amount of school education missed since COVID? Actually, yes, the teachers have been doing a lot of work around that, the missed time in the spring, but also that is what iReady is designed to help us do, to be able to get specific information around the standards that we need to address, and both from any learning loss and also moving forward. So we want to make sure that we're addressing grade level standards, but we also want to make sure that we're filling in any gaps that we need to from our time in the spring. So teachers have been working on that, and then iReady will just help us to reinforce what we need to be teaching in the classroom.
Yep. Great questions.
We also have a question about when the test starts. So Megan, we want to speak about the schedules that have been sent out to buildings and to be in contact with the teacher.
Yep, so the diagnostic window opens on Monday and students can start taking the math diagnostic on Monday. So I would just wait for communication from your teacher, because maybe the teacher has the plan for having a whole class conversation before students start it. And just wait for guidance from each teacher before starting the diagnostic, but it opens up on Monday morning. And then that first week, the 14th through the 19th, 18th will be for the math diagnostic. And then the week after, the 21st through the 25th, will be the reading diagnostic. Great question.
I have a great question here and a scenario to give. To clarify, will iReady have assignments assigned if a student is ahead of what the class is currently being taught? Yes, absolutely. So it does help our students who move ahead at a quicker pace. And of course they can move, say they're in second grade. And for the last couple of years, I've actually seen this. We've had first graders, second graders who are actually performing at 7th and 8th grade reading levels. It's been kind of exciting to see them self-motivate and move ahead. It gives them that opportunity. During spring, we had a kindergartner who I had to keep going in and reassigning 10 lessons at a time because they didn't have my path wide open for them. And that kindergartner went on to second grade level lessons. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, it's a great tool for students that have the opportunity to work above grade level, because they can work at their exact place where they're at above grade level. And so iReady pinpoints that, like they're ready to learn third grade vocabulary. Okay, here you go. There's that next lesson for you. So great questions. So coming from your teacher as well as your building is going to be a family flyer checklist, and it's just going to talk through everything that we talked through today. So if you haven't watched that video, but you attended live today, you saw the video on what is the purpose of the diagnostic. And then the other bullet points are get organized, motivate your child, support but don't help, and then celebrate. The big thing is celebrating, because taking the diagnostic and really showing what you know is stressful for some students, and we want to really celebrate. Hey, I'm so proud of you for completing the diagnostic. I cannot wait to learn what you already know, and I can't wait for your teacher to share that with me. So just kind of keeping that positive outlook and sharing that with your student. On the other side is it's just a checklist, so that you can just mark off, like, okay, my student has that quiet workspace, gathered that paper and those pencils, and I've really explained to my child, here's the purpose and here's some motivational phrases. Also coming to you is we have a site just for Pacific Northwest families who are administering or supporting the diagnostic at home. It has the video in multiple languages that we share today. It has fridge tips, and it has a pledge sheet for you as parents to pledge, hey, I'm not going to be working with my child because I want to make sure that that diagnostic really shows what they know. The really cool thing about the diagnostic is teachers have the ability to go in after a student finishes and see what they did last year. Like, does it really make sense that this student went up 3 grade levels, or did they maybe get some assistance from an older brother or whatnot? And so this family site, this is just going to be a resource for you to go to for troubleshooting tips, and that will come with that family flyer from your child's teacher or from your school. So some key takeaways I want us to think about. So the diagnostic just provides information into your student's teacher so that they can best meet their needs. It helps your student by creating a great testing environment, or help your student by creating a great testing environment, but don't help them on the assessment or on the screener. And then use the support resources available on our support sites for families. So that's all that we have for today. And we're going to stick around and continue to answer questions. So if you don't have any questions, just keep a lookout for information from your school or from your teacher about what the diagnostic is going to look like next week. And just know that you can reach out to them first with questions. But we just thank you for joining in. If you would like to stick around and continue to put questions in the Q&A, we will stay here and we will continue to answer them. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for attending. As Megan said, we'll continue until 5 o'clock answering as many questions as we can. And then after that, if there are questions that we haven't answered, we'll put those on the VPS Q&A. But hopefully we'll be able to get all of these answered. And I have a really good one here. Are tools such as multiplication tables allowed in the vicinity of the student while the math test is going on?
Well, that's a great question. So it all depends on if they are a student that has an individual education plan or not. If they do and the tools are a part of their IEP, then yep, go ahead. But everybody else, just paper and pencil. And if it's something that they need to work on, then they'll get lessons that make sense when it comes to multiplication. Another thing to know is there are tools already embedded into the diagnostic. So there are opportunities for students to use 10 frames or counters or base 10 blocks. And students will go through and use those tools at the beginning, right before they start taking the diagnostic. Great question.
So if a child is working a lot above or a lot below grade level, how will the classroom teacher be able to facilitate whole class instruction if they're an outlier from the whole class?
Great question. So this happens every day with every teacher across the entire country. We never are blessed with a group of students that are all at the same grade level. So teachers are already equipped with lots of tools for that differentiation or enrichment. So the teacher's role is to teach their grade level standards, whether it be 3rd grade, for example. And then there are going to be outliers that already know those skills, and then other outliers that really are missing some other essential skills first. And so teachers are going to be teaching their standards at their grade level, but either enriching using tools that they have for enrichment, so either extension activities or even activities above grade level, as well as meeting with other students that are below grade level in small groups so that they're still getting exposure to their grade level standards, but filling in gaps as they go. And iReady is one tool to both help with that enrichment and that differentiation. And so, really great question. What I see that someone asked for the PNW site, and I'm just gonna put that link in right now if people wanted to go in and take a peek right now. But I lost that question. Anything else I can dig into?
Let's see, is there a way to sync the assignments from Seesaw and MyPath?
So
I think-
so what a teacher will do is a teacher will just add an assignment into Seesaw that says complete one MyPath lesson this week. And then they'll still go into ClassLink and into iReady.
Yeah, they'll just go directly through iReady.
Yep.
Okay, and here's a good, how will my child, how will my child be taking the iReady? Will they do it over Zoom, or will they be doing after school, or will they do it in between? And that would be your teacher. Again, the teacher will facilitate a time when the class will be taking that. And we're hoping to be able to find a way for them to be able to use Zoom in a way that they'll be able to help monitor, but we're still working on that piece. So again, parents helping to monitor the iReady diagnostic would be really helpful.
Yep. So I'm going to answer Mary's question. So it says, will iReady increase difficulty itself, or will the teacher need to do that? So iReady automatically adapts. So if the student's getting questions right, it's going to jump up and keep asking questions until we kind of hit that zone of like, okay, got that one wrong, so let's go down a little bit. So it automatically adapts, and then the lessons will do that too. So. Okay. Any other questions? I'm just reading through them.
There were a couple questions regarding supporting translations for a kindergarten student, as well as is it okay to provide a multiplications chart or table during the test?
So the tools are all based on if students have an IEP already, then we honor that IEP, whether it be using tools or base 10 blocks or whatnot. Everything else, we just encourage students to use what's already in iReady, so using the tools in iReady. So if there's no multiplication chart, that means that's a skill, that's a third grade fluency standard that we want our students to continue to work on. And then they will get lessons that will help them work on that. So really great question. And then about the supporting kinder students, so just as a reminder, kinder students are not required to take the diagnostic. They will automatically just be placed in their MyPath lessons without the diagnostic. So we don't need to worry about testing our kindergarten students until later into the year. Okay.
And we had a question about where will this recording be found?
This will be posted on the district webpage as well as school web pages. So you should be able to find it in the learning links on the school web pages.
Any other
Megan, did you address, are the questions read out loud for the younger grades?
Yeah, I addressed that a handful of times. So if students are testing at kinder, first, and second grade, questions are automatically read to them. If they're testing within third, fourth, or fifth grade, there's a speaker icon that students can press that speaker button, and then the question will be read to them. The only caveat behind that is if it's a reading comprehension question that is testing reading comprehension, then there would not be a speaker because we're really testing that reading.
Okay. Can you please speak to all the ways the data from iReady is used? And Bridget, I know you can talk a little bit to this as far as district level goes, but for at the classroom level as well, if you want to talk a little bit about that.
In fact, there was another question that said, well, from a participant who also works for an assessment company, and she said she's heard of iReady being used to assess teacher instruction, the effectiveness, and that is just not the case, especially this year. We are using the data predominantly frontline classroom based, okay? I'm a true believer in that the data belongs to our students and their families and our teachers first, okay? Above those reasons for, say, state reporting. And that's especially true this year. This data, and when we talk about data, what is the data in iReady? Well, it's the explicit skills. It's the explicit sub-skills that the students know and do not know. So less about numbers and graphs and scale scores, and more about what are those explicit skills and concepts that the students have or do not have, and how are we going to help them get to there? So I know that doesn't answer your question fully. We're not using this as a benchmark. SBA, Smarter Balance, really is our benchmark. We have used it in conjunction with other assessments, with other teacher recommendations, for example, for helping with forecasting, for helping with placement into LAP programs. But it's never the only tool for that, and nor should it ever be. Okay, multiple resources are always the best practice rule of thumb for any school district to help us put students where they need to be in the appropriate place to get help. So this year, in terms of the data is yours. The data is your students first and the teachers. It's that relationship and how we can best use it to progress and advance students. And I'll stop there.
Yeah, used for growth, to show growth as well. So, you know, it's a way to work with the kids on setting goals and being able to show them and have, you know, them metacognate basically around their learning, how much they've grown, setting goals. So it's all about that, hey, look what I'm learning, being able to see that progression. This provides a lot of robust reports for teachers to be able to provide lessons for students that are struggling in certain areas. And so we will be providing a lot more PD for teachers around how to use all of the tools that we haven't even had a chance to talk about tonight, that teachers are going to be able to use to address the needs of students based on the diagnostic. And you know, that there's different ways to use the lessons. They can pull them for whole class instruction, and again, the MyPath, they can pull them for small groups. There's just a lot of opportunity with this platform to be able to meet student needs on a variety of levels. This is and we are at 5 o'clock, so we are going to end our session, but if there are questions here that we haven't had a chance to address, like I say, we'll put those on our VPS FAQ document. But Megan, you may be able to answer. I understand the adaptability of the test. What's the expectation the test uses to increase the complexity of the test? Is it the first 10 questions? Is it 20%? Is it 50%? How is that gauged?
Super great question. I just know that as students start at the beginning, the very first time they take it, their first question is one grade level below, and it adapts up from there. So I've heard from teachers before that teach first grade, like, why is my student getting second grade questions? Those are way too hard. That doesn't make sense. Or why is my student getting kindergarten questions? So it adapts up by grade level. I don't know the exact number of questions because every single student gets a completely different diagnostic. If that is something that you want to continue to learn more about, I can dig in and find that information of the exact adaptability of a student's diagnostic. So if you have questions about your students' results, you can always reach out to your teacher and we can help explain what types of questions they might have received to show that what the data that they have in their diagnostic results.
And it looks like we have addressed pretty much all of the questions. If you do have other questions, talk with your teachers, talk with the principal, and if there's anything that they can't answer, they can reach out to us and we will make sure and find answers for you. So thank you very, very much to all for attending. We appreciate your time tonight. We appreciate the importance of this and the value you place on education. And so thank you so much for your support. Have a great night, and we are going to do everything we can to make sure that this is all very successful and student learning is at our forefront. So thank you.
Thank you.